All right, so I took a piece of chicken bone, I believe the ulna, and I braided it to the size that I needed as a cinch. And we're trying to make a lanyard for an owl. And I tried to, and I thought I had, I was seeing if I had sharpened the awl, at least the edge is sharp enough to cut through this nettle twine that I spun using a hand spindle, drop spindle. And I'm gonna hopefully be able to make a video of that soon. I need more practice. I need more study in this. This is a great breakthrough. I think as far as cordage is concerned. I'm able to, instead of reverse twisting raw material, I can now spin from fibers from dogbane and stinging nettle, or pretty much flax would work too, twine or cordage or string, which is the basis for weaving fabrics, clothing, right? So this is really cool. Fishing line, right? At any rate, I was trying to cut this and it wasn't really working. So it's only because I didn't braid it to be sharp on the edges. That's all. I braided it to be sharp on the tip. So we got a stone tool here that I'm gonna go ahead and we can use this, and I know this will cut right through it. It's just because it's a piece of chert here, just fine, right? However, on this piece of cordage, I've already measured it so that it would be the proper length around my hand to attach to our awl and add the cinch to it. But I wanted to just, on a side note, that we're talking about spinning natural fibers, right? And when we think of spinning, we think of the big spinning wheels or Rumpelstiltskin or whatever the hell. There is hand, or what they call drop spindles, and there's many different types throughout the world. I have one specific type. I took a class in it. I can spin wool okay, but wool and plant fibers are completely different. So I'm hoping to be able to show that sometime soon. In the meantime, there's a Facebook group called Nettles for Textiles, and you got to check that out. It's just a ton of information, and you'd be surprised what you can do with natural fibers. And it's just they're nettles, stinging nettles. People don't like them, but that's a very strong plant. It's edible, it's medicinal, and it's utilitarian. And the utilitarian part of it is provides very strong, good, long fibers that you can extract and spin into string or thread that you can weave into clothing. And it was used in World War II, by the way. Many cultures have used it. Anyways, that's a whole nother tangent, whole nother subject. Again, Nettles for Textiles Facebook group. Go check it out. And then hopefully on this channel we'll revisit spinning plant fibers. Anyways, this is what I have. I'm not going to use buckskin this time around. I'm going to use this dogbane fibers that I spun, and I need to thread these through this this cinch here, right? And so all I have to do is really just kind of wet it and twist it through, and it'll be right through, right? So I'll just take a little elbow grease, aka spit, and just thread it through, and it can live there, right? The next thing that we're gonna need to emulate this piece that we've already done is sinew. And here's some elk sinew. Deer, any bovine, horse will work, sheep, goat, cattle, deer, reindeer, elk, moose. All of those types of animals have very, very strong sinew. Sinew is basically the tendon. And the tendon is the strongest natural fiber you can get, because you got to think it's got to bear the animal's weight, and it's got to expand and contract and stretch and last, and it's the connective tissue between the muscles and the bone. Right here I have some pieces of elk back strap. That's on the loin. Basically, if you reach behind your back and you touch your back, there's a strip of sinew that basically keeps you erect. That's this back strap. Oftentimes we'll use basically the Achilles tendon, or basically the heel that connects the base of the heel to your calf muscles. That's the tendon muscle that's often used, especially for backing bows. The back strap gives us nice long fibers, right? And this is what it looks like here. And when you're processing an animal, if you know what you're doing, you know the anatomy of the animal, you can get a hold to this, right? Both the tendon and the back strap. I bought this off of MoscowHideandFur.com. And you know, again, if you don't hunt or if you don't have access to it, to the raw materials, then you know you can, but you want to still practice and make things that are authentically primitive, then that's a great resource site. That's MoscowHideandFur.com. And this is a piece of elk backstrap. And so what I can do is I can kind of pull this apart, and you can see the fibers that I'm going to get. I'm going to get some really nice fine fibers, and they're extremely strong, you know, for as small as they are. Many Aboriginal people use the fibers to sew with, and in other crafts, right? And it's like this, and I can even split this down even finer if I wanted to. Many Native American bow strings were made of sinew. The thing about sinew is that you have to wet it, and if you wet it, it gets floppy. You can work with it, but as you can see, it's dry right now in this state. Excuse, I'm off camera. It gets dry, right? So I can break this up a little bit. I don't want to decimate the whole thing because I want to kind of keep this together. But you know, it has natural glues that once it dries, it wants to stick together. And again, this is a piece of back strap sinew that we're going to use to bind. I'm going to just bind the lanyard to the bone, so we have a completely primitive piece. And I can take this now and I can kind of split this down. I'll get a baggie that I can hold these pieces in, but we'll go with the original piece. The original piece is long enough. If we need more, we can use it. So essentially, what you have to do with this, and there's a there's a sanitary way and a not so sanitary way. Again, I didn't harvest this elk. I don't know where this sinew comes from. So I can make a tray or a dish of water and I can put this in because it has to be wetted. It doesn't really bother me so much because it's such a small piece. I can just use my mouth and I can just kind of bite down on it a little bit and add some saliva to it, which will make it floppy. If you're not okay with that, then get a dish or a pan with some water and you take your strips and you lay them in the water, and then they'll get floppy. It works just the same. So this doesn't bother me. And so, because it's so thin, again, trust me, I'm not putting this whole thing in my mouth and sucking on it. I'm not going to do that. But the smaller pieces, I think I can deal with it. I'm just fine. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to moisten it up. All right. You moisten it up, it gets floppy, you can work with it. I'm just getting it wet. It's floppy, right? Just like so. So now this is kind of ready to go. I have this floppy bit here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my lanyard pieces, the ends here. We already have the cinch on here. And I'm going towards the tip. And I'm just going to attach them to the sides let's see, oh, yeah, that side, and then this side, like this. All right. So we basically have this configuration, and then I can take my floppy piece of sinew here and I can hold it in place, and I can start to wrap, and I can wrap pretty tightly. And the beautiful thing about sinew is that once it dries, it cinches up and it sticks to itself. So I don't need to add any glue or pine pitch or anything like that. I mean, I could to double it up to make sure that it just really doesn't go anywhere, but in and of itself, I don't need to do that. You know, so we basically have something that looks like this, really kind of loosely, and it almost right now feels pretty secure, right? But I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna add some more, and I'm just gonna wrap this down. I'm gonna lock this down, and then here's the cinch, right? We take the cinch is gonna go right on. It's gonna help me formulate that. That's gonna go right on there like that, right? And I'm just gonna wrap this down. All right. Okay, so here's the sinew work, and I put 3 strands on there, and it's pretty translucent, and what's going to happen is it's going to dry and it's going to cinch, and it's going to make sure that this lanyard is not going anywhere. It's actually going to even stick to the bone. I mean, again, keep that in mind. Even though this is from a different animal, the molecular structure is similar enough to where this will probably even bond to the bone pretty quickly, because sinew is the connector between the bones and the muscles. So the version that we're copying even has buckskin, right? And buckskin is really just the skin. It's the leather. This is more of a suede, but it's the leather from the deer. So this is going to bond not only with this, with its natural enzymes and glues, but also with the actual bone itself. It's going to create a tight bond, and it's not going to go anywhere. Now, if you need to undo this for whatever reason, you just soak it in water overnight and it'll come right apart. That's the drawback. Now, you're trying to keep a piece that's going to stay forever, then you'd shellac it, you know, use some modern, you know, stuff like polyurethane or whatever the hell, and then it'll be shiny and it'll have a hard coating to where it'll be protected against moisture. But if you want to keep things pretty copacetic and completely primitive, then this is pretty much what you have. And again, I got my cinch down here. This is spun nettle, or excuse me, dogbane cordage. It's big enough to go around my hand. I can take the cinch here and I can just pull it straight up so that it's tight on my wrist. So as I'm working and doing other things, but when I need it, I can pull it up again, right? And just kind of flip it up, and then I've got it, all right? So, I mean, I hope this kind of inspires you or gives you some ideas. I hope this helps. Just a little bit of bone work. I have other videos that are that I've used bone with. For example, making gorge hooks for fishing. I've actually made some hooks, you know, out of bone that actually look like a hook. Again, bones are very, very good resource from the animal, along with the sinew. Aside from just the meat and the fat, you know, there's the bones, there's the sinew, there's the teeth as well, you know. So anyways, this is just was just a video on how to make an awl. And again, you know, we have different types of awls here for different uses, and needles. I haven't gone through making needles yet, but there's the needles, and then another awl that I was working on that has another bone cover. So I hope this is inspiring and useful to you. Again, visit my website, theurbanabo.com. If this is useful for you, hit me up, via PayPal. You will see the links below.